12 Keys for Guardian. 1. Remembrance. The sword of sacred identity. Once you've been shattered and survived the fire, you begin to see what is not you and you start protecting what is. Now remembrance sharpens, no longer just an inner whisper, it becomes a boundary. You begin to say no, not from fear, but from knowing. You are no longer willing to forget yourself for love, approval, or survival. You remember who you are by choosing not to forget in the presence of others. You start guarding the sacred in your life, your time, your relationships, and in your energy. You do not defend ideas, you defend essence. Here, remembrance is an act of defiance. I will not betray myself again. You carry your name like a flame. 2. Surrender. The devotion of obedience to the inner voice. Now surrender matures. It is no longer reactive, it is devotional. You no longer surrender just when things fall apart. You surrender before the act. You pause, you listen, and you align. This is where will becomes sacred, not erased, but reoriented. You begin to guard the flame of divine will within you, even when it goes against ego, convenience, or approval. Surrender here is not passive, it is fierce obedience to the true voice within. It is saying, not my will, but the will of the one I am becoming. At this stage, you begin to feel joy and surrender because you've begun to taste its fruit. The deep peace, the harmony, the rightness of the path is truly yours. 3. Truth. Truth as alignment. Now you begin to walk it, not shout it, not weaponize it, but live it. Truth becomes your sword and your shield, not to attack others, but to stay in resonance with your own soul. You don't just speak truth, you become it. You stop explaining yourself. You stop tolerating distortion. You stop playing roles that betray your alignment. At this level, truth becomes quiet, potent, and piercing. A glance, a presence, a boundary. You walk in it, and others must either rise or flee. 3. For devotion. Devotion as a sacred discipline. Now devotion matures. It becomes intentional, committed, and structured. You begin to shape your life around your devotion. You pray not to feel better, but to stay aligned. You protect sacred time. You honor your body as a temple. You say no to anything that pulls you from the altar. This is the stage of holy responsibility, where love is not a feeling, but a daily act of offering. Your devotion now has roots, and the deeper they go, the more unshakable your soul becomes. 5. Courage. The courage to protect the sacred. Now you stand not for yourself alone, but for what is holy in others. You stop tolerating distortion. You draw lines not from pride, but from truth. You say, this is what I am, this is what I honor, and this is what I will not compromise. Here, courage is not a burst, it is discipline. It is the daily choice to live aligned even when no one watches. You begin to understand that courage is not just for the battlefield, it is for the table, the temple, the conversation, the quiet refusal. You wear courage as armor, not to defend ego, but to guard essence. 6. Presence. Presence as anchoring force. Now, you do not just visit presence, you guard it. You recognize when others try to pull you out. You recognize the voices that aren't yours. You begin to set boundaries, not just with people, but with your own thoughts, distractions, and compulsions. 7. Compassion. Compassion as sacred holding. Here, compassion matures into clarity and strength. You no longer rush to save. You no longer collapse into others' pain. You stand present, steady, kind, without losing your center. You can witness another's suffering without needing to control it. You say, I am with you. I do not fix you, but I do not abandon you either. This is the compassion of the teacher, the healer, and the protector. You become a place where others can unravel without fear of being judged, pitied, or corrected. You hold presence without agenda, and that heals. 8. Service. Service with integrity and discipline. Now, service becomes stable and structured. You commit to the daily path. You show up when it's boring, not just when it's inspiring. You protect your energy so you can give sustainably. You stop saying yes when your soul says no. This is the stage of embodied stewardship. You are no longer chasing impact, you are tending a flame, building with intention and honoring your gifts. You give not out of debt, but out of overflow. You know, if I'm not aligned, my service is diluted. You become trustworthy to your own calling. 9. Radiance. Radiance as embodied integrity. Now, radiance becomes stable. You no longer try to be seen, but you are. Because you walk your talk. You show up clean. You live what you know. Your radiance is felt, not just noticed. People trust you without knowing why. You stop dimming for others. You stop shining for approval. You simply are who you are, fully. And that steadiness becomes light in form. You shine because you are aligned, not because you are trying to. 10. Integrity. Integrity as embodied boundaries. Now you become a keeper of integrity. You say what you mean, you live what you say. You no longer apologize for your clarity. Your boundaries are not reaction, they are structure for the sacred. You become someone others can trust, not because you are always nice, but because you are real, consistent, and honest. You begin to notice when your energy leaks and you correct course. Here, integrity becomes daily discipline, a continual checking in with soul, and a continual honoring of your own yes and no. 11. Humility. Humility as right sized presence. Now, humility becomes clarity of place. You no longer hide, you no longer overreach. You walk with strength, but also restraint. You don't interrupt the sacred timing. You don't insert yourself to be seen. You act when called. You wait when it's not your turn. You honor others' light without losing your own. Humility here becomes graceful strength, the kind that holds the room but doesn't need the spotlight. You've stopped proving yourself, you simply are. 12. Return. Returning as shelter. You return to serve. You offer what you've become as structure, as steadiness, and as a place for others to rest and rise. You no longer need to be the center, you become the ground beneath others' steps. Your return is not loud, it is felt as safety, depth, and presence. You keep watch over what matters. You say little, but you say what is needed. You act not to prove, but to preserve the sacred. You are the one they call when things fall apart. Because they feel you, you do not flinch.